Good morning. There's a point in every journey where the mind shifts and attention turns back to home. Not to the exciting, the mysterious, those far-flung reaches of some exotic land, but to the warm, familiar, comfortable call of home. Maybe you're already feeling it. It's not homesickness. It's not especially longing, but it's real. However long a trip away is, however cushy and squishy and cozy the hotel bed has been, you always hear people saying, with a little cuddle in their voice, how much they're looking forward to sleeping in their own bed. And we do actually sleep better in our own bed. The science backs this up. A 2015 study of 2,504 hotel guests found that people sleep better at home than in hotels. The Sleep Foundation's 2022 Sleep Cycle Survey backed this up. 65.8% of people said they get at least 7 hours of sleep at home, but only 53.8% manage that in hotels. So yes, we do love our own beds. But it's not just about the physical comfort of our own beds. Psychologically, our homes represent a tapestry of memories, routines, and relationships that provide us with a sense of identity, a sense of belonging. The familiarity of home offers a sanctuary where we can recharge, reflect, and reconnect with the people and patterns that define our lives. There's something very special about home. And the best way to appreciate that is to leave it. Because as anyone who's ever served overseas, away from home, will tell you, there's nothing quite like a homecoming. So today, as we wrap up our cruise, I want to explore this idea more. Unlock the front door and really unpack. Unpack what it means to be home, why it matters, and why, in some ways, we never really left it. Because travel, strangely enough, also brings us closer to home. So what is home? Well, as with most things, it's more complex than most people think. We're sailing right now with almost 1,000 US citizens. So when we arrived in Portland, what did I say? I said, welcome home. And it made sense, right? And yet I'm willing to guess that less than 3 people on board this ship live in Portland. Maybe no one sailing here lives there. So why did it feel right to say welcome home? Why did it feel different to Canadians when we landed in Newfoundland, even though they themselves live in Vancouver? Why was I so enthusiastic to get off the ship and go supermarket shopping in Gibraltar? Your home is your house, right? Your 4 walls, the roof above your head, yeah? People have been living in houses for at least 12,000 years. But the idea of what a house means has shifted dramatically over that time. In medieval England, as Lucy Worsley notes in her book, If Walls Could Talk, homes were mostly communal spaces. There was very little privacy. No personal bedrooms. Everyone just lived together, often in one large hall. You slept, ate, and snored within earshot of just about everyone you knew. The very idea of privacy at home only started to develop in the Tudor period, when chimneys made it possible to heat separate rooms. Suddenly, people wanted doors, bedrooms, locks. By the 1700s, the English elite were hosting elaborate dinners in purpose-built dining rooms with servants choreographing the experience like a ballet. And by Victorian times, the home had become a theatre of respectability, with whole rooms, the parlour, the drawing room, designed not for living in, but for being seen. Fast forward to today, and homes are expected to do everything. They're offices, gyms, cinemas, spas, sanctuaries, schools, sometimes even restaurants. But they're not just a set of rooms, and they never have been, because we had home long before we had houses. To get to the root of what home really means, we need to roll things back, way back, to before anyone built houses. Because there's something ancient and deep about our connection to home. I want to introduce you to a family of Canaanites, because this family offers a great example for shaking up our simplistic, comfy little idea of what home is. And you probably already know them. This is the family of Jacob, the grandson of Abraham. It's a pretty big family. Jacob had 12 sons, according to some accounts, just as many daughters. Anyway, one of the sons, Joseph, was no longer living at home. He was now in Egypt due to some family squabbles over favoritism and a particularly nice coat. Well, the rest of the family continued to live in their homeland of Canaan until a particularly severe famine forced them to up sticks and move. Where? Well, unknowingly at the time, to join brother Joseph in Egypt, where there was still plenty of food, in no small part thanks to Joseph's contributions as viceroy of the country. Jacob's family went to Egypt for survival, not to move home. Fast forward a few generations, and the descendants of those Canaanites, the ones who'd arrived hungry in the midst of a famine, are now living in Egypt as slaves, and they want out. And here's where the story becomes interesting for what we're talking about today. When Moses leads them out of Egypt, when the sea parts, he was taking those descendants of Jacob to a place they'd never been, a land flowing with milk and honey, a land of promise, not a land of memories, and yet they called it home. So if home can be somewhere that you've never even visited, let alone lived, what on earth is home? Well, let's stay with that image of the Israelites in the desert for a minute, because they weren't the only ones. In fact, for most of human history, people didn't have houses, but they still had a home. They just carried them. They were nomadic. The Bedouins of the Arabian Peninsula, the San, Bushmen of the Kalahari, the Jomon, ancient Japan, the Sami across the Arctic Circle. Different continents, different climates, but the same story. No houses, but still home. Hunters, gatherers, herders, they moved with the seasons, with the herds, with the weather, and yet they still had a sense of home. Home was sitting around the fire. Home was the people. Home was the familiar rhythm of packing up the tent and then putting it back up again. So when did that stop? At what point did we look around and say, do you know what? That's it. I'm staying here. I'm done with moving. Let's build a fence and complain about the neighbors. Because that moment changed everything. And that switch kicked into gear about 12,000 years ago in what's now known as the Neolithic period. And what was the big instigator? Agriculture. Once people started growing food, grain especially, they needed to stay put. You can't move around so much if your dinner's stuck in the ground. So for the first time, we built houses. Initially, homes were primarily for shelter, for basic living. However, over time, they evolved into spaces for social interaction, for entertainment. And with that, as our concept of house as home developed, our drive to own land was formalized. First with land deeds, and later down the line with mortgages to help people spread the cost. Suddenly, a home was something you could own. But just as powerfully, home can also own you. Because home isn't just a physical shelter. It isn't just four walls and a roof and a reasonably reliable plumbing system. It is, and always has been, something deeper, something emotional, even something political. There's another layer to home. Not just what we own, but what we belong to. We're not just owners of a home, we're also subjects of one. Every one of us belongs to a country, a state, a nation. As citizens, We are subjects of our homeland. And in that sense, our home owns us. It sets the rules. It defines our borders. It lends us use of a passport. And in exchange, we get to call it home. We get to call on it if we find ourselves in times of trouble. It gives us a flag to wave. It gives us a national anthem to mumble through. And the right to feel a little teary when we see it from afar. But it also rescues us from emergencies. It protects us from dangers. It educates us in order to ready us for opportunities. Like a house, it offers protection. Like a house, it gives us pride. It's not a house, but it is still home. And it's not just at a national level that identity defines home. Consider this. For all of the traveling we do, for all the cruises, the adventures, the ports of call, how many of us still refer to the place that we grew up in as home? Even if we haven't lived there for 40 years, even if someone else lives there now, even if it's been knocked down and turned into a car park, it's still home, right? I still call my parents' house home. Why? Because of family identity, because of meaningful memories, because I was formed there. And some small part of me still lives in those walls, even though the wallpaper has changed. It's the smell of that old hallway, the creak of the stair I used to jump over, the cupboard I used to play hide and seek in. We don't love those homes because they're beautiful. We love them because they're ours. They're the stage for our story, because they were the setting for the scenes that made us who we are. Owning a home isn't really the meaningful part, but being owned by a home, belonging to a home, to use a slightly gentler term of phrase, that's life-changing. Home, in that sense, is about belonging, which sort of brings us back to our old nomadic ancestors, because we haven't actually changed all that much from them, especially for those of us who indulge in the odd grand voyage. We may not be following herds or weather patterns anymore, but we do still move seasonally, deliberately, and often with a surprisingly large number of matching suitcases. We're modern nomads with rolling wardrobes, with global SIM cards, with prescription pill organizers, but we are just like the Bedouins, like the Sami, like the San. We carry home with us. We don't haul it on camels or sleds or strapped to our backs. We tuck it into the little rituals that we travel with wherever we go. We recreate home in miniature wherever we land. And maybe that's the most comforting thing about home. It's repeatable. Wherever we go, we start rebuilding it instinctively. We bring our own tea bags. We fold our clothes the same way. We try to get the same seat in the theater. We decorate our cabin door. We set alarms at the same time. We start finding our bar, our seat, our patch of life. Even strangers start to feel like neighbors. And that's how you know that home isn't just a place. It's a pattern. It's a habit. And it shouldn't come as too much of a surprise that habit and habitat share the same root. We're creatures of habit, and it's in our habits that we feel most at home, especially nuns. Oh dear. Anyway, perhaps this monumental travel experience, this pole-to-pole grand world voyage, has added more depth to our appreciation and connection to home than we could possibly have achieved if we'd never set out on our travels. So in the spirit of our grand voyage travels, let's open the portal one last time and collect our next destination, home. This is the gangway. As you can see, there are plenty of facilities here. You've got access to a car. There's coffee and tea available once you go inside, probably a telephone, toilet, but just check that there's toilet rolls still there, and Wi-Fi should be available. Let's have a look on a map. But I couldn't work out the distance, and you probably don't want to walk it. All right, let's go through our top 10. Okay, let's start with the bedroom. Your private space. Not typically on the tourist map. A hidden, secluded little spot known only to those in the know. This one's a top pick for the true insider. If you really want to experience the fully immersive life of a local, start here. Private tours are available. Group tours are a little harder to arrange, but may be an option on request. For the foodies among you, this one's not to be missed. You'll find all manner of domestic appliances for keeping food cold, dry, even heating food up. The kitchen has its roots way back about 10,000 years BCE, when people started cooking on fire. It's been a key part of fancy houses since the ancient times. You can find plates in the cupboards, cutlery in the drawer, and when you're finished, you can enjoy washing up in this fully immersive experience. Of course, in order to prepare any food, you'll first need to buy it. The supermarket is your top option. Dating back to 1930, when Michael Cullen opened King Cullen in Queens, New York. You'll be engaging in traditions that have shaped shopping behaviors for the past century. Keep an eye out for special offers, especially look at the top and bottom shelves first, because the middle shelf is just there to tempt you. You know what the strangest thing about going home is? Sometimes the most mundane place is what makes it real. That's why I got excited about the supermarket in Gibraltar. Because it wasn't just a supermarket, it was recognizable. There were cornflakes and laundry detergent and some poor soul arguing with the self-checkout machine. It felt like home. It felt like walking into a life I understood. That's home. You see your brand of shampoo and suddenly your soul exhales. Now, this one's weather dependent, but I really hope we do get some good weather days. We're approaching summer now, so the odds are in our favor. Keep an eye out for new buds in the flower beds. Maybe even combine a visit to the garden with a cup of tea from the kitchen. You can take the cup from the kitchen and enjoy it outside. Maybe even throw in a slice of cake too. For the wildlife enthusiasts, the garden is a top pick. But not everybody's a fan of the outdoors, what with the bugs and the pollen count and the high UV rays. So for a relaxing afternoon inside, I'd recommend the lounge. You'll find sofas, maybe even a well-loved armchair. There's usually a spot where light catches just so, making the lounge an ideal spot for a relaxed time reading the newspaper or channel surfing on the TV. If you're looking for the full big screen experience, then the local cinema is the place to head. Famous for its stale popcorn and sticky floors, you'll be able to catch all of this summer's blockbusters in the pleasant company of teenagers on their summer break. And other people's children. Coming up this summer, the Mission Impossible franchise returns with The Final Reckoning, which promises to be the end of the series. But I don't believe it, because Jurassic World returns with Rebirth, which proves there are unlimited ways to flog a dead horse, or dinosaur in this case. Superman's back as well. All in all, this summer promises to be a thoroughly original summer in movie theaters. If waiting 3 hours for a predictable ending is your sort of thing, then you could also call your bank. Or better yet, you could go and visit them if your local branch hasn't shut down whilst we've been away. You could be scolded for checking your bank balance in person instead of on the smartphone app. You could be reprimanded for staying loyal to checks when the rest of the world has moved on to paying with their eyeballs and genetic ID. But it's a nice experience to be treated like trash whilst they play hide and seek with your money. Now, we're slightly ahead of the main season here, so if you're particularly unlucky, you'll arrive home in time for your grandchildren's end-of-year showcase at school. This may involve around 100 high-pitched, insufficiently rehearsed scream machines murdering a popular song while attempting to dance. You'll find that wherever in the hall you sit, the person in front of you will be recording the entire shipwreck on their phone, so you won't be able to see it anyway, but boy, will you hear it. It's a memorable assault on the senses, but it makes you look really good if you can get through the whole thing. Now, I know we've had the opportunity to visit a lot of local museums around the world on this cruise, but there is none more disappointing than your own local museum. You'll be able to work your way through 5 or so scrappy rooms detailing how people have lived in these parts over the centuries. The interpretive signs have yellowed and are starting to peel, but they've been up since Roger G.H.F. Moore Jr. III affixed them there with glue in 1987 at the museum's inauguration. And there's actually a plaque near the entrance which honors that moment with a photo. This one's not so much a destination, but a real good bad idea. But if you're finding that your son or daughter is a little resentful of your big trips, maybe they're voicing a little frustration about having to pay for a babysitter when they thought you'd just sit around all year waiting to be called round to send their children to bed on their behalf while they go out for nice dinners with their friends, then a family reunion is a great way to ensure that within no time at all, really, all it takes is an afternoon, within no time at all, they'll be encouraging you to book your next big cruise with their blessing. It's win-win. Here are all the highlights on a map. So, as we all head back to our own little private destinations, whether that's a leafy cul-de-sac in Connecticut, a high-rise in Honolulu, or a rental with a fridge full of expired mustard, I hope this journey has reminded you that home isn't just a postcode. It's not just bricks and beams. It's not just routines and rituals. It's the people you laughed with, the stories you carry, the little daily habits you miss when you're away and you find yourself recreating without even realizing it. It's deeply personal, and yet somehow universal. And the beautiful thing is, it grows. Every experience we have adds to it. Every person we love, every lesson we learn, every journey we take, they all fold themselves into our sense of home. And that's why returning home never feels exactly the same, because you are not exactly the same. And maybe that's the best part, because it means that the world is not divided between home and away. It means that everywhere you've been has been a place that you're going back to. It means that your home, your real, personal, private home, is bigger now. So safe travels, sleep well in your own bed, and remember, wherever you go next, there's no place like home. Not because of what's waiting for you there, but because of what you bring back with you. There's no place like home. Thank you.